Well, D'Angela, what a good way to get acquainted on video.
Right?
So that's where you and I are coming from. We want the city of Shreveport and all the world to know that we're cranking up some stuff.
We are cranking up a lot of stuff right now, guys. Me and Robert have been talking about folk music and fashion and
Yes.
Shreveport fashion, namely.
Yes.
Actually, I'm so excited to get into that with you.
Here we are in a city that has never thought of itself in its fullest sense. It's a city known for what's called Shreveportitis. What it means is a low self concept. The people tend to not dress with flair and style because they don't think of themselves as worthy of that.
I was actually thinking of how to tackle that exactly what you just said.
Yeah,
That so eloquently. Like, why do we dress in this way? That's kind of like we're going to Walmart, but we're actually going to an
yeah,
event.
yes.
you know?
And I love people who go to Walmart sometimes without realizing they have a costume on, you know, and they give us a little juicy moment
Yeah.
inadvertently in many cases to reaching out to the public with a visual statement.
And see, like I've seen, and it's been rare, but things like a woman in a fur coat, literally at
Yes.
the Shreveport Barksdale Walmart. That's my when I see that, and like I said, rare. I'm just like, yes, you put that on to come out of the house, even if it
Yeah.
was to go get some groceries.
Yeah.
you know.
You know, I'm so old that I will walk up to a person like that and go, "Thank you for dressing." You know, that's the kind of person
Right.
that I've become.
I get that. I would like to touch on, like last time we were talking about the Carolina chocolate drops when we
Yes.
were last together. Um, Rhiannon Giddens from the
Yes.
Carolina chocolate drops. What's really special to me about what I'm wearing today, so
Mm-hmm.
we, me and some friends went to see Beyonce in Houston
Uh-huh.
in June, and I had to get some get up in Houston for that concert. It was Cowboy Carter, so cowboy theme. So I got these boots and this necklace.
Let's show the boots somehow.
Absolutely.
Throw your leg up on that. Yes, there you go.
so I got these boots, this very humble little silver necklace to see the Beyonce Cowboy Carter concert, which Rhiannon Giddens was on, by the way, on that album.
This
he,
is good.
she played banjo on Texas Hold'em. I immediately recognized that was her too whenever
Good.
I heard the song come on. And so I wear these boots out here. These are like one of many of my shit kicking boots, I call them,
Mm-hmm.
that I wear around Shreveport.
Mm.
I love seeing people and stuff like cowboy boots, especially men. And I'm not talking about the workwear cowboy boots, I'm talking about the fashion cowboy boots, right?
I see.
I'm gonna put that picture that I drew over this part right here
Good.
of the video so everyone can see what I'm talking about. Because
Mm-hmm.
basically in the picture, they're wearing the cowboy boots, the flare jeans. It was a really unisex look,
Mm-hmm.
male crop top,
It's good.
right?
You know, if you can stand it, then we want to see it.
right.
It adds juice to our lives, you know,
Yeah.
and that's what we're all seeking is that electrical juice that we know it's not too far away. We want to check it out.
Yeah. I would love if we can go into your amulets.
Mhm. My amulets are very important part of my raiment each day. You know, I collect these. Most of them come from West Africa because I've had access to shops, you know, where I could get them, and they're not. That's not commonplace. I've also bought some at festivals where there are West African vendors, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and so they're to remind me to that I live here, but I don't live here at the same time. I live in the world, you know,
Yeah.
and so amulets are something that are maybe the fashion is not happening at the moment, but it's a classic. You know, all over the world, when you see a men with things hanging around their neck, you realize, okay, let me listen to this. Let me find out what's going on here, and that's my message.
I love that. Yeah. And even like I feel like the amulets, they're such a low key way to make an outfit high key, right?
Hmm.
So like you're in like just like a shirt and your shorts and let's just like throw on some necklaces with stories on them or
Hmm.
something. So if someone comes by and says, "Hey, I like that," you have something to say about it.
These glasses frames I found in Dallas at about 20 years ago in a box in an optometrist back shelf. Can you make these into glasses for me? And I've been wearing them ever since. See, North Louisiana was never part of their culture, of this culture. So second lining is coming up, all the time through the media into North Louisiana, and North Louisiana looks at us like, "Ooh, okay," and but it's also kind of a West African. It's a black thing, It's a black Creole deal. So those of us who love Black Creole culture and want to be part of it as much as we can be, we get it and we love it. We get our juice from it. But other people are more inhibited, and they think something like, "Oh, I never knew this. I never thought that this was what I needed in my life, but it is what they need in their lives because it sets them free in so many ways." So it's growing, and you and I are helping it. We hope move its tail around and grow.
Absolutely, I love that.
Thank you. Yeah, second line's hopping on one foot and letting that other one come down slowly afterwards. And then basically it's a walking step, and you should do it as though you were a flaming non-heterosexual. No, you should make that mincing step something of pride, something of statement. So a little step offsetting the giant steps that we often take. And it's a very pelvic, second line is the locus is the pelvis. Now, expression through hands is part of where you want to be. As you tell your story, as you dance your story in a second line. Now, it all begins, yes, exactly, with elbows and hands and fists. And it begins with leaning way back and then coming way over. So it's almost like a yoga class to the beat. Good, thank you. Africa is my idea. It's my coinage, as far as I know. There are not many people in the world using the term Louisi-Africa. Louisi-Africa recognizes the fact that the reason Louisiana is a little bit of a different state, it's not the same as Texas or Arkansas or Mississippi. It is creolized, and smartly so, with food and cultural signposts like music. And so Louisi-Africa recognizes the fact that this importation of slavery was a terrible thing, but it resulted in many positive things. And especially here in this state, when the French and Spanish were not as tightly in control of the colonial peoples as were, let's say, the English sometimes or Dutch. So the colonial life here in Louisiana was enriched by liberal treatment of West African peoples. The Ashanti, the peoples from Senegambia were so numerous in Louisiana, and they were communicating via percussion late at night. They could talk to each other, even though they may not have had a language in common in terms of a national language, but they had a sense of West African communication that could be expressed in drum beats, you know. So this bag is full of, well, the tambourine. Tambourine probably is more ancient than Africa. It probably comes from Persia. The word tambour, means this thing in Persia. So important. Here's the musician's version. That version of it, it's a little bit awkward and heavy, but it is loud. And you know what to do with this. Let's find an appropriate striker for you. Here is a simple broomstick striker. Now muffle it, please. Yes, there are your two basic tones. And you've got a lot more tones in it as you, oh nice, you know how to dampen it in between the hits. Oh yes, you're terrific. Here is, straight out of West Africa, a wood block that it will be used by you similarly with the striker there that you have. Yes, yes. Woo! That rapid trill is outstanding. Good for you. Now hit in other places on the block. Yes. Yes. Yes, yes. Nice one. This isn't a rare bird. This is a gungqui. Gungqui. This is West African sculpture. It's welded. It's made in a fire. Um, it is similar to the double bell agogo instrument, but it is maybe earlier in historic development. Gungqui sets the tone. Let me put this in your hands. You're so adept at this. I'm very happy to see. Now, yes, yes, that striker will be fine. Kind of lay it on its side because that will make it maybe a little easier to back and forth. Yes, that's your basic agogo bell gungqui sound. Yes, you're such a natural. Now, muffle it too. Dampen it. Yes. Boy, you're a perfect demonstrator for this work. These bronze bells, people in West Africa were very good at casting bronze, which stunned the Europeans who didn't think that metalwork was something that West Africans could do. But the Benin sculptures proved that they were outstandingly adept at being artful with casting bronze, and other metals.
So these just like shook while they danced.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now here is the agogo bell. Now when you saw the gungqui, you were thinking, I'm pretty sure I've seen an instrument like that or that. And this one is so much similar. This is probably developed by West African slaves in the nation in which more millions of West African slaves were imported during the diaspora. What nation, what South American nation would that be? With more importation of enslaved West African people than any other nation, and far more than came to the United States, by the way. It was Brazil. So this is thought of as a Brazilian West African instrument. So you see, it was made in a metal frame so that you and I could click it together like that. But basically, get your striker, please, and you are going to find that it is so much similar. Yeah, if you turn it, exactly. Yes, yes. It's called agogo bell. Agogo. We Americans say agogo, but agogo. And it's considered a bell, as you can tell now how much that ring has. Now dampen it, please. Yes, you've got it under control now. That is a marvelous response. From the Caribbean.
Ooh.
Yes. Beautiful. Boy, you're the best responder I could imagine. Also, African. These shells are, I don't know the name of the tree that goes with it, but they're so resonant, they're so penetrating of sound that you've got to give them pride of place. Yes. What we're doing right now is polyrhythm. That means more than one rhythm happening at the same time. Americans love to go single rhythm. Let's do on the beat. Okay. Yes. And that is the basic way an American responds to the opportunity to do some percussion. But Europeans, and especially people from Asia and the continent of Africa, know how to make polyrhythms very much a part of their lives. So you and I were just doing that, um, and they were overlapping, and they were consonant, but they were two different rhythms.
Mhm.
Here's an interesting beater. I don't have
Oh,
the
that's cool.
yeah, I don't have the drum that goes with it, but this is an unusual part of what West Africans like when they design things. Um, so this is a little trip into some of the things that came to Louisiana, and you don't have your banjo today, but it is also West African, brought to the United States by slaves and modified by the way by poor people in the Appalachian Mountains. You know, they needed that banjo instrument just like West African people did, and they were both impoverished peoples who know how to get a lot out of a little bit of something. So,
I like that perspective.
thank you. That this is my an introduction to my study called Louisi-Africa, and it is ways in which, of course, there's the cooking, there's more dance, there are other instruments that can be brought to bear. Here's one of the one. Oh, I don't have a triangle in here. I'm sorry, I don't. But
Oh, a triangle's a good time
the
too.
triangle is also it's known as the fe, in which means from the Latin root word for iron. The iron was well played by in plantation days when slaves were given a drum. Someone would say, "No, no, no. They use those to communicate with people on the next plantation. I don't think that's a good idea." That black man smiling because you gave him a drum. No, no, we're going to take that away from him because that's danger. That leads to rebellions. That leads to unnatural fairness in the world.
Right, right.
So, and it did. There were uprisings in Louisiana slave country against the masters numerous times. And let's talk briefly about the Maroons. The Maroons were the people who left the city and left their plantation and went into the woods and never came back. They learned how to live in the swamp. They learned how to do stuff that they could trade with the people in the town. Cutting lumber was for a long time a standard thing in the maroon communities, and they could cut and fashion that lumber into a usable form and secretly sell it to people in the town who needed inexpensive wood for building cabins and so forth. And so they existed that way and learned how to eat the fish and vermin of the swamp and lived pretty well, if not in actual cabins. But the cabins that slave owners sometimes offered were usually hot and difficult structures anyway.
Yeah.
So the Maroons would be out there for 3 years, 5 years, maybe sometimes longer. But eventually, you could imagine what happened. People in town got frustrated and unhappy about the freedom that these people had bought for themselves. They just didn't get it. They wanted freedom right now, here, 10 miles from here or 5 miles from here, and they got it. So what do you do? What you do is you get a big posse of white folks on horseback, bunch of torches, and you burn out their village. I hate to say it, you shoot to kill and take out some of the leaders, you hope. So that's the story of a part of Louisiana history that we don't talk much about, the Maroons. It was a cyclical thing, you know. All right, the townspeople would forget about what they did to that community, and the survivors are somehow allowed to come back and resume life on the plantation. But the seed has been planted, and the next generation comes up, and they're like, I want to do what my grandpa did. You know, he was a Maroon and he got away. And me, I'm gonna do it too, you know. So that is part of the history of Louisiana, is that rebellious attitude, creatively rebellious. It was not now in some case, in the the most extensive case of a slave rebellion, a knife was planted in a cruel master's throat,
Hmm.
to get rid of him as and then the guns were assembled and the horseback, and the slaves moved on to the next plantation. Um, by the way, one of the things that shocked me in my studies of Louisiana history is that I thought that maybe Creole cooking evolved partly from slave women cooking in the evening for their family with a little garden on the side, enslaved, but still a little bit of humanity left in the way they were treated. But that was mostly not the case.
Yeah.
Mostly slave owners meted out the amount of salt and food and other things that were needed for life very carefully, because the whole deal was free labor. Slaves represented profit, free labor, and you didn't want to mess up that equation by giving them too much. And so you limited the amount of calories that were given to your slave property, just enough to keep them alive, just enough to keep them so that they could get up at dawn and work until
Hmm.
sunset. Um, you also didn't want to give them much time after sunset. You hoped that they were so dog tired that they slept the whole night through. But of course, West African people knew that slave owners are like counting on them to get some rest before the next hard day in the fields. Well, they had the West African people had something else to do, and that was worship, uh, practice religion, you know. And so they went in the dead of night, in the wee hours of the night, despite their fatigue, despite their weariness, they went through the woods to a protected place, usually a big stand of trees that had not been cut down for some reason, far enough away from the master's hearing and that sort of thing, to be able to do dancing, praying, and it was often called a hush arbor for a place in the woods, um, rush or hush because it was had to be secret. It was not allowed. Now, black people were often slaves, often taken, not often, but sometimes taken into churches and taught the Baptist hymns and so forth. And that was a thing that was, acceptably part of the program for slave life. But slaves knew that you didn't just buy into it totally. They knew that they could modify what they're being taught and make it into something that was theirs, not the white man's master's property. So, thank you for listening to my lecture on West Africans in Louisiana and how we evolved a state, a mixed culture, a Creole culture that is all the richer for the hardships and the brilliance of the creativity of West African people as they found ways around the worst constrictions. Thank you for asking these questions and letting me talk. And I
Thank you for being
treasure.
such a local treasure, a
Thank you.
regional treasure, uh, King of Shreveport, whatever we may call you. It's all beautiful. Thank you so much, Robert.
Well, Caddo Schools gave me a platform for working with young people, with the city, in effect, by hiring me to be a Caddo teacher for 30 years and branding me as a non-traditional teacher. That's the best thing in the world that happened to me. And so it gave me the freedom to dig into things and lead my students in what I felt was very productive work, not necessarily following the textbook at all, but instead coming from a deep rootedness of a person who cares deeply about educational life and enhancing the life of people in this region.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
Yeah.